actually like a sex and love addicted person. Like it's really about the the relationship. Like you have multiple relationships, you're pursuing these relationships. Like that's the addictive pattern. I kind of conflated being a good kid with being a Christian. We go and confess to elders at the church, and it was severely mishandled. We are culpable for our sins, and like it's and in the Bible. It's like, you know, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, like they're all responsible for their sin, and this was a generational cycle that could have been spoken into by their father. If you go to a restaurant and you get food poisoning, does that mean that you're never going to go out to eat again? No, you're just not gonna go back to that restaurant probably. Like when you're tempted to look at porn, like start praising God. And he was like, if you can actually like verbally praise God, sing a song of praise to God, and look, there's no way you're gonna be able to look at porn in the next one. I will let's give some exclusives. I'll go ahead and say exclusive. You know what I'm saying? This is all I say.
What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Shaping the Code. What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture podcast. Hope all is well with you all, family. Listen, today we got a special guest with us. He's in town. He's in the great state of Minnesota, all the way from Nashville. He's on tour. He's your favorite rapper. Ooh, an MC. He's a businessman, pioneer in so many ways, loves the Lord. And I'm privileged to have him. We've been trying to get him to come on for years, and we finally made it happen.
We made it happen.
Yeah, the one and only Nobigdyl is with us.
Man,
good,
thank
sir?
you so much. That's probably the warmest welcome I've ever had on a podcast. Man. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yes,
Truly
sir.
appreciate you being here, and I'm excited for this conversation. We're already having good conversation off camera, so
yeah,
I know we're gonna have a good time. Yeah. How do you feel? Do you like Minnesota? I'm gonna put you in the hot seat real quick. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't like spent like a ton of time just like in the city or, you know, in the culture, but every time I come, it's a good time, you know, good people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good vibes. Yeah. I gotta tell a funny story. So we have our Glory conference that we put on every year, and the year was 2022. We brought out Nobigdyl and John Keith, and you know, we were excited. The conference was great, and then it was time for the concert, and out of nowhere, people just disappeared. Everybody that was at the conference, I don't know if they were like tired, because that's how we closed the conference.
Yeah.
So I swear there's like 30, 40 people in that room. But the way y'all rocked the house, it felt like a packed room. Like y'all gave 110%.
Have to, man.
And I always really appreciated that you guys served us in that way.
Yeah. Well, you have to. I always say, like with shows like that, if you know the number is not what you want it to be, it's like, but why would you punish the people that are there?
That's real.
They should, if anything, they should get an even better show. They're there. You know what I mean? So you gotta go.
No, that was dope. No, it was fun. It was a good time, man. Yeah. There was a mosh pit going, and it was a vibe.
We're gonna turn it up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I know a lot of people know you for your music. A lot of people know you for Indie Tribe, the festivals, the albums. But on this podcast episode, I mean, we're going to talk music, but I also want to like dive into your story a little bit, get to know the man behind the mic. And so I just kind of want to start off this conversation by asking about your testimony. Like, what's your upbringing? Did you grow up in the church?
Yeah. I did grow up in the church.
Okay.
My mom always made sure that me and my brother were in church. We moved around a lot. I lived in 9 different states before I was 9. I lived in like probably 14 or 15 different houses.
Wow.
But every time we would move somewhere, the first 2 things mom was trying to find was the church and the school, basically.
Yeah.
So I was raised in a Christian environment. However, there was this strange thing that happened where I kind of conflated being a good kid with being a Christian. So what I mean is, I wanted to be obedient, to my parents, like, to an extent, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, get good grades, do well at school, respect your elders.
Yeah.
And being a Christian was just like part of that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as like, I didn't understand it as like a personal relationship with the creator of the universe and the redeemer of my soul, and somebody that I could walk with and talk with daily in that way.
Yeah.
I had a great respect for God, like the big idea of God. But really I was just trying to be a good kid and be relatively obedient, and as I got older, when being like relatively obedient kind of got in the way of me hanging out with my friends and doing whatever we wanted to do, then I just kind of kept the facade up of a quote unquote good kid and just lied to get my way, would sneak out, whatever, so that I could hang with the guys and do whatever.
Yeah.
But outwardly, I still had this facade of this really good kid, this Christian kid. And so that continued like all through my teen years. Basically, anything that I wanted to do, then I would just lie about it, hide it, and keep this facade up.
Yeah.
When I went to college, then my family moved again with my dad's job. So in effect, it was like I went out of state for college because they went out of state.
Gotcha.
So now this is where the rubber meets the road, because now I don't have like that authority over me. I can do whatever I want. I'm in college, and the church that I go to is not in the same city as the college. It's 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I can kind of live this double life. And this is where I start to try to get my identity and kind of cope with just the emotional pressures of just being a human,
that's right.
through relationships. And I actually become like addicted to relationships, like almost like a serial dater.
Wow.
Yeah. And in hindsight, I know I've done a lot of work around this, but I was actually like a sex and love addicted person. So there's like sexual addiction, which is typically more like it's just about sex.
Yeah.
That's it. And then sex and love addiction is like it's really about the the relationship. Like you have multiple relationships. You're pursuing these relationships. Like that's the addictive pattern. You're sacrificing your morals and different parts of your life towards this addiction, just like the addiction cycle in general, And so I'm in that cycle now in college, and still playing church, and so the way that God brought me through that was, he brought me to unforced confession of these things. So there was this moment where I had gotten away with everything, and I decided like, okay, I'm gonna actually stop. I'm gonna stop, being a cheater, being a liar, being in all of these relationships. I'm just gonna stop it cold turkey. And God was like, that's good, but that what you actually need is confession and community for this to actually break this cycle.
That's good.
And I fought that for a long time because, again, there was no outer pressure. It's not like somebody was going to tell on me, somebody called me, nothing like that. But I prayed to God and said, if what you're telling me is I need to confess this whole big thing that just seemed insurmountable to confess, especially with the facade that I had up. If this is what you want me to confess, then just don't let me rest about it. I'm meaning it more metaphorically, like, let it be a heavy weight on me type thing. I literally couldn't sleep.
Wow.
He was like, let me make it really clear, you know? And so, yeah, I confessed everything, confessed it to the church and my wife and yeah. So that was the moment that I would say my faith was actually tested. Like, is this something you believe or something that you just want to kind of parade around, you know, because at that moment it became very costly. It cost something to follow Jesus in those moments. And so, yeah,
that's a word. That's a word, bro. There's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, I can't take up the whole hour with just this, so I'm trying to like
condense it as much as possible. And my mind is turned. I'm like, we might just have to park here.
Yeah, no doubt.
But no, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, really appreciate you leaning into that. I'm so encouraged as I'm hearing your story, because on one end, you know, you're highlighting the importance of confession, which I feel like confession is like a lost art in the church today.
That's right.
You know, it's like fake it till you make it.
That's right.
And then we never make it. You know, we're just dying on the inside. And we got to deal with texts like in James that says, you know.
Yeah, I was in James this morning, so that's why. Go ahead.
There's healing in that, you know. Or First John, where, you know, John literally says that if you claim to be without sin, you're a liar. And you make God out to be a liar. So it's fascinating that we're trying to we're trying to act like we're good. And the Bible's like, no, you're not. And we know you're not. Yeah. And like, there's freedom when you confess you're not, you know? And so I kind of wanted to ask you, and if it's too personal, you don't got to answer, but like, cause it sounds like you've done a lot of work too. Yeah. Cause you know, growing up, especially as men, when we talk about lust, sex, things like that, it's just like, oh, you just got to white knuckle it, get it together. Yeah. You know, just stop, you know, watching this and doing that. But I've learned the older I've gotten, sometimes it's like, you know, it's attached to anxiety. Sometimes it's attached to a trauma. Sometimes it's attached to a disappointment. Maybe it's attached to like feeling neglected. Like as you were doing that deep work, did you realize that there was also sin committed against you, sin that like you maybe witnessed? Like, I don't know, like I think sometimes getting to the heart of it helps, because I've met a lot of guys who just feel like there's something wrong with me. Like, no, there's something deeper going on. You're not just addicted to sex, or you're not just addicted. Yeah. Was that something that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of things I think of. One is that I was using sex and relationships to cope with very strong negative emotions that started when I was very young, you know. I grew up in a very loving household. I mean, I just can't say enough good about my parents and even the relationship we have now. But their relationship at times was tumultuous in a way that's very hard for a kid to understand. That combined with the movie, combined with the fact that, okay, mom and dad don't live in the same state right now. Okay, you know, all of these things. At the time that I'm coming of age, of middle school, you know, when porn is typically introduced through whatever it is, sports, you know, school, other kids, you know, and this is something where I can escape, you know, and I don't have to feel these things. And especially because I'm feeling like this kind of loneliness and wanting this like this holistic family love and affection. There is something that kind of hacks my biology in a way where I feel loved, when I participate in this addiction. So I'm not thinking about the pain that I'm actually going through, and for at least some moments I can feel biologically like like what happens in your body. Like I can feel dopamine and serotonin, which happens when you're hugged, you know what I mean, as well, real. You know? So, so I think that it started there, and then I was bullied in middle school. So you're compounding that, you're compounding the family thing. bullying, you know, like body image issues from school, on top of racial issues from school, from the areas that I lived in. So these things are compounding. Experienced like some pretty intense betrayal by my friends in high school. These are all compounding into this addiction. I'm trying to almost fix things that have happened through and that's what grew into the actual like relationship addiction. Is now I'm trying to get from these partners what I have missed over the years. Which now I'm making them into idols, and there's no way for it to go well, because I'm putting way too much on a human. I'm essentially putting God's place on a human. I need you to be my everything, my source of identity, my source of love, my source of achievement, my status, all of these things, you know. So I definitely think all of that goes into it. And then the other thing is I learned through the process of confession and being honest even with my family, which is very tough.
That's real.
That these are generational patterns and sins. You know? And I didn't know that until I took the first step of confession, and now more stuff is coming out. You know, confession and vulnerability is contagious. So I was able to have very vulnerable conversations with my dad, you know, and other members of my family. And so I think all of that goes into it. These patterns that, you know, that's biblical too, like generational sins and generational patterns. And the cycle of shame keeping older generations in silence actually harmed me, because what if when I was young, my dad was able to have honest conversations about the prevalence of this and how this will affect you, and you know what I mean? So I think coping with trauma and negative emotions, and then also the generational patterns, all went into the cycle of addiction.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I've been, in the last couple of years, been doing a lot of reading, like Pete Scazzero, emotionally healthy discipleship, spirituality, all that. And you know, he helped me see, like, you know, when you look at Abraham, you know, he had a lying problem and he played favoritism, you know, and then that trickled down to his kid. So like, he lied about his wife being his sister.
That's right.
And then Isaac lied about his wife being his sister.
That's right.
To the same king in the same nation just years later. And then in the same way, you know, Abraham obviously favors Isaac over Esau. But then Isaac favors Jacob over what's Jacob's brother? I'm like blanking right now. Jacob and Esau.
Jacob and Esau.
Isaac and Ishmael. That's what it is. My bad. I like blanked for a second. So, and then you see the same thing. Jacob favorites his son Joseph. It's just like this.
That's right.
Generational, like everybody's dealing with the same stuff. And so I love how confession brought about deeper insight and revelation to like maybe what's going on, and how it's not always on you, or there's things at play there that started long before you came into the picture or what have you.
That's right.
What
I was gonna say, that's scriptural too, where it's like we are culpable for our sins, and like it's and in the Bible, it's like, you know, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, like they're all responsible for their sin, and this was a generational cycle that could have been spoken into by their father. You know,
that's good.
But
I love how it's both and. Aside from like getting greater perspective on maybe stuff that happened in the family, how else did the Lord meet you in confession? Like, what did that do for your spiritual faith, your journey with the Lord?
I want to honor, like, in case people who are part of this story are listening, I want to honor like everybody who was involved, and I also want to tell the truth, you know. So everybody who was involved, I believe that they love the Lord, and everybody was doing the best they could with what they had.
Yeah.
And I think that when I first took that step of confession, the first person I confessed to was my wife, because I was married. It was in the first year of our marriage. I had not broken that addiction yet. So I brought that addiction into the marriage. It's a much longer story of like how it actually felt to me. Yeah. Like I felt like I was trying to stop, but end of the day, the addiction cycle didn't stop until the first year of marriage. That's when I had that moment of, I got to stop this. Yeah. Okay, I've stopped for 6 months. So Lord, let me just never do it again and whatever. And God said, no. Yeah. Like we got to do this confession thing, right? So the first person I confessed to is my wife. Hardest day of my life. We're 23, 10 years ago, and then we're like, okay, we have no idea how to handle something of this magnitude. We know we need to go to the church. Yeah. So we go and confess to elders at the church, and it was severely mishandled. Like our confession was severely mishandled in a way that brought more confusion, more shame, and like almost there was a possibility that moment could have taken us out of the church. Wow. However, you're asking how God intervened. The only reason that we stayed in church is because of God. Wow. Yeah. Like his hand was evident in the situation, because we don't have time to talk about it, but if all the stuff was laid out, like a lot of people would have been like, oh, I'm out of here. Yeah. Like that's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but through that situation, God brought us to another church community, the one that we've been with for 10 years. And the exact opposite happened. Wow. We went to that church, and because of a lot of the good things we did learn at the previous church that we left, we knew we don't want to just go into a church and start fresh and disappear. Yeah. Right. We need to go to this church and immediately talk to the elders and tell them what we're dealing with right now. Wow. So that's some good foundational stuff we learned from the church we left. Yeah. And so we went to this new church, told them everything that was going on immediately. Yeah. And were met with so much grace and compassion. I remember there was a moment where we told the first time we told one of the elders, and when you have been dealing with that type of sin and shame, and you open up, you're trained to see in people's eyes if they are otherizing you or judging you in a sinful way. Yeah. And when we said that to the elder, nothing in his eyes changed. I remember that's what happened. Like he was just still listening. Like it didn't affect him at all. He was just like, he wanted to hear the next part of the story, you know? Yeah. And that was like a significant moment for us. And then, you know, that our church, I mean, they just wrapped their arms around us. They paired us with couples who had been through similar struggles to help us walk through it, to help us mature as a couple, to have people to cry with and grow with and be strengthened with. And that has continued for 10 years to where now we can be that couple for others, you know? Yeah. So how did God show up? I think that it's very obvious that he kept us in the community of believers, and then he brought us to the specific community that he wanted us in, you know? Yeah.
I find it so ironic that it's people that can cause some of the greatest hurt in our life, but then God also uses people to bring about some of the greatest healing in our life. And that's right. It's like, and it's hard because like people hurt me, so I turn to people.
That's right.
It's this like oxymoron, and it's just like, well, all right, I have to just trust God that he is going to use people to bring about healing. What for you, what like for you and your wife, what was it? Maybe, you know, it's the grace of God or what have you, but like, what gave you guys the faith, the confidence, the courage to not throw in the towel, to give another church a chance, to like lean in and have this conversation again? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I do want to credit that first church. It's like when something, you know, I think we're in a very like polarizing and black and white moment in our culture where it's like, if a bad thing happens, then everything associated and everybody associated with that bad instance is discredited. And that's not true. That first church that we were with taught us so much about God, so much about church, and so much about perseverance, and so much about suffering.
Yeah.
The big strengths about that church. And so we knew from that teaching, like we knew to persevere, but we also knew that God is good even when people are not. Like it's interesting. It's like that church that hurt us taught us that if people hurt you, that's not God. That's them not moving in accordance with God, who is always good.
Yeah, that's a word.
And I mean, I haven't even thought about it that way until right now, but it's like that's God's hand too. Like he used people to teach us about him, that so that in the moment where we were hurt by those people, we would still hold on to him. You know? So I think that that's what made us persevere. And I didn't know this kind of like phrase at the time, but what I say to people now with church hurt is like, I don't know where I heard this, but it's really good. It's that, you know, if you go to a restaurant and you get food poisoning, does that mean that you're never going to go out to eat again? No, you're just not going to go back to that restaurant probably, you know? But the tendency now with like leaving church and church hurt is I'm hurt at this church. So the church is I'm out on church. I'm out on organized religion. I'm spiritual. And it's like, that's I got food poisoning at Chili's, so I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna eat at a 5-star restaurant. It doesn't make any sense.
Not at all. Yeah.
So
no, that's good. That's good. You know, I'm excited. This is such a fire conversation already, and I'm excited to get in your story. I feel like from what I know of you, you've got a lot of resilience to you. You know, I feel like every time you've been knocked down, you find a way to get back up, right? And Parker and I were talking about this before we came to get you, but we were talking about how you even got into music, and you maybe not got into music, but like started taking music seriously on a professional level. And it's like, it was Derek Minor who fired you, right? Yeah. Right. You want to talk to us a little bit about that? Like, yeah, because you weren't rapping. You didn't think there was like a.
So I've always rapped and written songs since I was, you know, a kid, like a really young kid. But yeah, I went to MTSU originally for audio production. I wanted to make beats, and then for music business, I wanted to manage other artists. Part of this was my knowledge of how hard it is to be a professional artist. And so hedging my bets on, I want to be around music. I want to be around the industry. It's easier to be on the management side than it is to be the artist, right? So through that, got an internship with Reflection Music Group, RMG, Derek Minor's label. Started out as a classic intern, coffee, sweeping, mopping. You know, one time the studio flooded and I had to figure out a way to like get all the water out, that type of stuff, you know. But I mean, those days were so fun though. And then got hired on as a merch manager for the artists, specifically for Derek, and then a road manager. So now we're going on tours and I'm road managing Derek. And I was not that good at it. I was just like, they trusted me like on a character. They trusted that I wanted to serve. They're also trying to serve me, trying to raise up another like young black industry professional from the area. You know, Heart of Gold, those guys, all the RMG guys. But at the end of the day, I'm accidentally double booking flights. I'm, you know, like I'm not the most like organizational and administrative. I'm a big ideas guy.
You're creative.
And so, but also during this time, Derek is such a generous guy. He had a studio in town at the time, and me and some of the other guys that he kind of mentored from MTSU, he just gave us a key to his studio, like a physical key. And so we would just go in there and like record and stuff like that. He wouldn't even be there. And then one day he came back to the studio. He like left something in there, and he heard us recording. He was like, "Yo, what is this?" And I was like, "This is me." He was like, "This is your song?" Yeah. I was like, "Yeah." And so he tweeted it out, and that's back like it was right at the end of the blog era. Twitter's going crazy, and blogs are going crazy. And so like somebody like Derek tweeting that out like had a lot of traction. And so a lot of people picked it up. That was kind of the beginning of me getting like a fan base on the internet, other than just like in Murfreesboro. And and so anyway, that culminated into him having a conversation with me, like me being bad at road managing, not like terrible, but not the best. Like that, and the fact that he was impressed with the music and seeing what I was doing. He like sat me down. He was like, "Do you want to be a road manager like all your life, or do you want to be an artist?" And I said, "Well, in a perfect world, I'd be a artist, but you know, I know it's very tough and unlikely, so I think I'm gonna stick on the business side." And he was like, "All right, bet." You're fired.
Be gone.
Yeah. And he said to me that he's never seen somebody really make it who had like a safety net. And so he kind of pushed me out of the nest, so to speak. And it really did light a fire under me, because that next year I put out 3 projects. Wow. Which is what was really the foundation of my like building a fan base on the internet. Put out Smoke Signal, Summer Camp Sessions, and No Dylan's, all in that year. Rapzilla, I was a Rapzilla freshman. The article about Derek Minor firing me kind of like went baby viral. Everything hit at the same time. And then culminating to Canopy, my first album, and that was like top 10 on iTunes hip hop because of just all of this like snowball effect. But yeah, I mean, I can't credit that moment with Derek enough. And it was really him and my wife who broke me out of the mindset of like, they pushed me to be like a calculated risk taker. Because before that, I was like, let me do the sure shot thing. That's why I was like trying to be a manager. But both of them just like spoke so much like encouragement and like were telling me what their vision was of my artistry. And those are like 2 people, especially at the time, that like I trusted the most. You know what I mean? I still trust my wife the most. I still trust, but I'm saying like
I got you.
And so that's like what propelled it. You know?
I wanted to ask you, like, because you know, I feel like I took a risk with this podcast. You know, last year I stepped out, pursued it full time. And you know, there's high highs, low lows for sure. But was there like any fear in you, like, wow, I gotta actually do this now, and will it hit? Will it connect? Can I pay my bills? I'm married, you know, like, what was that? Or do you feel like you had a safety net? You feel like you had maybe the support of your wife to not worry about the finance? Like, what was it that like helped you?
That's a great question.
Step out in faith and really go for the thing.
So there was like practical things, and then like just kind of like conceptual thing. But me, like, if my wife wasn't with it, I wouldn't do it. Like, even now, like, I'm not the type to be like, oh, I got to chase this dream, and you just got to like, you got to believe, baby, like, we going to make it one day. Like, nah, like, if at the beginning she was like, I'm not trying to be like a rap wife, then I wouldn't have done it. I already had like other jobs, you know. But the interesting thing is, when this happened, we were in a like 600 square foot, like, I mean, terrible apartment in Murfreesboro. This is not the same as like, people probably hearing this like in cities, and in cities, like small apartment, those are common, like, but we're talking about like in a suburb. So like if you're in 600 square feet in a suburb that's 45 minutes away from a mid-sized city,
Yeah.
that's a terrible situation. You should be able to have a house like in the country, like you know what I mean? So it was crazy, bro. It was like,
what are we doing? Yeah.
AC unit going off, like bed bugs, like literally we had like crazy stuff, right? And that's when she was like, no, I think that you should do this. So then we came up with a plan to like a practical plan for the finances. Gotcha. So I already had a job leading creative writing workshops with this nonprofit called Southern Word in Nashville. Shout out to Southern Word. And so that was like the bulk of our money at the time.
Gotcha.
And so the plan we came up with was, once my music made 75% of what I was making at that job, then we would make the jump, because there's a threshold of time where, like, if you try to make it so that it fully replaces your income, or it's just an ideal situation, you're not gonna be able to do that while also working a full-time job, most likely.
Right.
So we were like, okay, it makes 75%. We can like live more frugally.
Yeah.
And then I can put that extra time, that extra 8 hours into making that 75%, 200%.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
That's what we did. And it worked out.
So practical.
Yeah.
That's what's up. What's up. Earlier I was talking about your resilience, like, from, talking about your faith, stepping out with the music, and then like you step out, there's buzz. And then I kind of want you to tell a story. Some things happen. I just remember before Indie Tribe really took off, there was a lot of talks about, is this the end for Nobigdyl?
Oh,
is this musically, like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
But then yet again, you like come out of that, and you guys come out with Indie Tribe. But like, what kind of happened, or what was that music journey for you when you're like stepping out, doing the thing, and you're seeing some success, and then you're hoping for something to go a certain way and it doesn't pan out that way? Like, what was that like for you?
Are you talking about like the first iteration of Indie Tribe versus the current one?
Yes.
So, so, Nobigdyl starts working. I'm doing that full time. I do my first album independent. And then I signed to Capital CCMG or Capital CMG, Capital Christian Music Group. And the label system is not a good fit for me. That was my fourth independent project.
Yeah.
And that's when labels started kind of like, vying over me signing. And I signed to Capital. And I mean, they're like I think they actually are the most successful Christian music label that there is, but the label system just isn't a good fit for me and my fans. At least that type of major label, kind of traditional, didn't work. It kind of clipped my wings and the things that made me like connect really well with my fan base. So I left that like after 8 months, and they were great about it, by the way. Like, there's a lot of horror stories about major labels, but CMG understood my viewpoint and they let me out. They didn't legally have to let me out for a long time, but they did. So shout out them. I was trying to make sure it's not all horror stories. Like, there's very solid people with a lot of integrity at CMG. So shout out CMG. So we had started like that. Yeah, that was kind of a trying time because it's crazy, man. When you get signed, then all these other pieces of the music business, especially to a major label, then they come around you. So it's like booking popped up, like booking agent popped up, publicist popped up, management popped up, and all of these people are talking about how they believe in you and they're trying to like, go on this journey with you. And then when I left the label, they all disappeared. So it's like, wait, so you were here because you were hedging your bets because major label artists typically work out in some sense for your respective industries.
Right.
You're telling me it's about me and my artistry and what I'm putting out and my vision and all blah, blah, blah. But then when I leave the label, y'all all magically
Disappear.
one way or another disappear. So that was very hard, like emotionally, you know. And at the same time, Indie Tribe was this idea that I came up with in college where very simply it's like a rising tide raises all ships. So it's like instead of, you know, me charging you for a feature, you charge me for a feature, and like we just pass the money back and forth. And we're individually trying to break through this oversaturated market. Then why don't we pool all of our resources, our diverse talents, our diverse connections, and break through the ceiling together, you know? And so that culminated into an actual act called Indie Tribe. And we had the first like iteration of that, which was me and Mowgli the Iceberg and Jerry Mana. And then that grew to also have What Up RG. And so, yeah, the label thing had happened. Then we have this Indie Tribe group. I go on tour with Cray and Andy for a Better Late Than Never tour, which was a monumental moment in my career. That tour did more for me than the label, than anything else, because connection with the fans is everything to an artist like me. So being able to connect, like have the opportunity to show my music and connect on a personal level with all those fans changed everything. So
I was at the Minnesota show.
It
was a vibe. It was a good time.
Shout out Cray and Andy for that. And Words and RG and but yeah, so after that it was a mixed bag of good and bad. And then after that it became apparent that iteration of Indie Tribe was not going to move forward. I think that me and RG are both like campaigners and leaders and visionaries. And looking back, obviously at the time it hurt, but looking back, it was really a disservice to what God had for both of us individually and the people that he would eventually have us serve, for us both to be under like this one vision. You know what I mean? Like the people that God reaches through RG, I cannot reach, and vice versa. And I mean, I think it's obvious with his career now, like with everything that he does internationally, everything he does for first generation immigrants and bilingual listener, all of that is like, it's beautiful and it needed to happen. So anyway, that didn't work. The first one, we had to like break that up. And so, so it was like, yo, I've just left the label. A lot of my team left. Indie Tribe hasn't worked. It's me and Mowgli. And it's like, what's next? Does this like actually work out? And Mowgli spoke a lot of encouragement. And he was the first member of Indie Tribe. I've known him since college. So like, he really has my ear. And I don't know, like hearing him like still believe in it and be very encouraging, it just kind of like put the battery in my back. Like, I don't know, I do really well when somebody is like counting on me, you know? So like, it's like, wow, same thing with my wife, you know? And it's like, that's good. I'm like, I'm not gonna give up on this, you know? And so we were like, okay, well, you know what? We're just going to keep going and just, I remember we used to say like, we're just going to keep walking through the doors that God opens until all of them are closed. You know, there's no, like, just kind of like be present with your daily bread, with the daily bread he's giving you, not trying to plan like way far ahead. We're just one foot in front of the other, eating our daily bread.
That's good.
And then Michael actually, because I mean, Michael was my DJ, of course, and we had that's the second longest friendship that I've had to Mowgli as far as like music. And he was like, bro, it really was his whole idea. He was like, bro, I should be an Indie Tribe, number one. And also, John Keith should be an Indie Tribe. And I'm like, I don't think John is just gonna want to. Michael be having ideas, and I'm like, bro, I don't like. I feel like I missed a bunch of chapters. Like, me and John have never talked about this. I've never heard anything like this, you know. But sometimes he'd be right. And so he was like, nah, bro, I think it should happen. So he kind of like orchestrated the phone calls and stuff. And we talked about it for a long time. Like, and then it was very evident that it was like a good mix. And then the thing about any tribe is like, whenever we have a new member, like we've been building with that member, hanging out, making music for a year to 18 months before anybody even knows, you know? And, but I mean, yeah. So since then, Any Tribe has put out we put out 3 projects. And we've had 4 festivals. That's what I was trying to say. 4 festivals, 3 projects. 5th year of our festival is this year. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Nah, bro, you and John, man, y'all be rapping.
Yeah.
Y'all some of my favorite people to listen to, bro.
Yeah.
Y'all be spitting. Yeah.
I wish both of us could rap as well as Tory Deshawn. That's the only thing. That's the only problem, bro.
Nah, y'all, all y'all talented, extremely talented. Y'all got something good there with Indie Tribe for sure. I kind of wanted to ask you, like, you know, I'm trying to pick your brain here a little bit because, like, you know, in the midst of like, you know, you feel like you got this God dream. You feel like God's opening doors, blessing things, but then obstacles come your way. I know you like highlighted friendships and your wife and community, people counting on you. But how do you, like, you know, for me, sometimes when I see a roadblock, my first thought is, well, maybe God's not in this, or maybe I should like pivot here, pivot there. What, like, you know, speak to your resilience some more a little bit. Like, is it just, you know, having that strong foundation, having good friends, having people who love you, or do you feel like God has given you like a vision, or like has he met you in some supernatural way to get you to keep going? Or you know, because sometimes you're like wondering, God, are you with me? Like, are you here? Is this selfish ambition? Are you really about it? Like, how do you, like, juggling all of that, like, could be really tough, you know? And so what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I would say the supernatural way that God has met with me is through community. So I think that community is everything. I mean, he calls his people his body, the body of Christ. I think he's very serious about the imagery and the metaphors that he uses. I mean, that's a very strong image. Like, a body cannot function without the other parts, but each part is also distinct and different,
right?
You know,
that's good.
And so I think that my safeguards for knowing whether this is a moment to be resilient and to endure and push through versus no, this is God saying this isn't for you, is through the wisdom and counsel of community.
That's good.
Both people who are like in authority over me, and then also like side by side brothers and sisters, you know? So yeah, I mean, if something is not working and the fruit of it is you know, destructive, or you know, if the fruit of it is anything other than love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, then that's probably not a time to be resilient,
right?
You know, if you're, you know what I'm saying? Like, if stuff's not working and y'all are going broke, and now you're not taking care of your wife and your kids well, and you know, I mean, now you're not viewing God how you should, and stuff's falling apart that type of way, you know,
that's good.
But if it's just that it's tough, it's hard, it's taxing, you're very tired, you're exhausted, but you're seeing these at least seeds of those fruits, the flourishing of people, the glory of God, love, you know, then that might be a time to persevere. And when you're in the middle of something, it's tough to differentiate, which is where community comes in. I'm a third party who loves you, and I can say, hey man, this is actually destroying your life. This is taking joy away. Or bro, on the other side of this, I
Yeah.
really think that God is going to bless you and others,
If you
for his name's sake, if you continue,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that type of thing. So
That's good. That's good. I bro, like, you know what's evident about your music is like you prioritize that and you like love the Lord. And you got a lot of great records, a lot of songs that I personally enjoy, a lot of songs that like get me going through the day. I be listening to in the gym, so on and so forth. But my favorite song of yours by far, it's not even close,
okay.
is Empty Without You.
Wow. Okay. All right. I like that. I like that a lot.
That joint,
I like that.
ever since it came out, it's been on repeat. I think in 2024, that's probably like the most played song. I got to look at the
That's
Spotify
beautiful.
rap. But like, I was like, man, I'd be remiss if I had you on the podcast and I didn't talk about that song with you.
Yeah.
Because it's so, I mean, it speaks to like what we've been talking about already, but just like, I think the right posture to have when it comes to career, when it comes to success, when it comes to, you know, all of these things. I wanted to pick your brain. Like, where were you when you wrote that song? What inspired that? Like, just walk us through the process behind Empty. Yeah.
So I will say for most of my songs, it's not like the content of the song, like the situation that produces the content of the song has just happened. Typically, that's not what happens. It's that I try to live life very present in every moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm more of a, like, I would say like traditional studio musician in that I take all of my experiences with me into the studio, and then the music draws out these ideas.
Okay.
So it was the production of Empty Without You that pulled the concept out, if that makes sense. I didn't go in there like, you know, Tupac was said to have like, he'd have a notebook with like the verse already written, the concept written, and then he goes and he fits it to the production.
Right.
For me, it's I try to, you know, like I said, pay attention while I'm living, and a lot of stuff comes out of just conversations and prayers and whole years or multiple years of living come out. They're teased out by the production itself. Yeah. So that it's just the way my mind works. That music sounded the way that the concept of Empty Without You ended up being. Right. If that makes sense.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah, the Empty, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, I feel like kind of my whole journey with Jesus, in a way, is reflected in Empty Without You, because it's like, everything feels empty without you. Don't want a blessing without you. Like that even talks about the like addiction cycle. You know, it never felt the thing that I was chasing. I never got it. You know, I never was satisfied. And that's true. That's not just like a soundbite. It's like, I think that's a cliche we hear all the time. Like, you know, it never satisfies. Sin's never satisfied. It's true, but it just, we might be sensitized to it. But it's like, it was empty at the end of the day. That's why you're always going back to it. And a lot of the things that can distract us or take us off path from deep relationship with Christ look like blessings. That's why that second line, like, everything feels empty without you. I don't want a blessing without you. Like, because people will call all types of stuff blessings, and I'm like, I mean, if God's not in it, it's also very inspired by you know, Moses saying he doesn't want to go to the promised land if God's not going to go with him. There's a moment where God is like, it's so interesting, but God is like, you know what? You could go. Y'all can go to the promised land, but I'm not going with you. And Moses like, we're not. No, if you're not going, we're not going. Like, we are not going if you're not going. And that's everything feels empty without you. Don't want a blessing without you. Caught inside my head and all the stressing without you. I just need a place where I can rest. I just need a place where I can rest. And I found you. You are that place. You know, that's right. My inner peace is abundant anytime I'm around you. The enemy Wants me on my back bad. Don't want to crash out, so I need a crash pad, a safe place to land. Tell me it ain't that bad, and your heart is where I'll land at. So yeah, it's just like, if it's quote unquote good, I don't want it unless God is going with me.
I feel that. Yeah, that's so good. And I resonate with that so much, because I feel that even in my own experiences, like I have been that guy that's like, once I get this or once I get there, life will be good. And then you get there and you realize it's just another day, it's just another, and I've come to realize there is no ideal season in life.
That's right.
Every season is going to have its pain points, and every season is going to have its beautiful moments. And what makes seasons beautiful is God's presence.
That's right.
He makes, without him, happiness and joy just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And with him, he makes the pain worthwhile. There's, one of the reasons why I'm a Christian is because no pain is wasted with him. Like it all works out, And so, yeah, man, I was really vibing to that song. Heavy. I still do, but 2024, that thing was, you could ask Parker, that thing was on repeat. Every time I needed a song on my story, it was empty without you, no doubt. Yeah. And so I love that. I wanted to ask you, like, we talked about this a little bit on the drive here, but as you're navigating, influence growing, as you're navigating music, doing well, as you're trying to follow Jesus, what's it been like in this season to like be faithful to him with like the rise and the success? Because I think, a lot of the times we talk about how the temptation to walk away from Jesus is there when all hell breaks loose. But I've come to find in my life, and maybe I'm projecting, so if you don't resonate, that's cool, but I've come to realize that there's even greater temptation to leave Jesus when things is going the way you want it to go.
That's right.
When you have the blessings, when the doors are opening, when all that good stuff.
And I'll go ahead and jump out the window and say it might be a cultural thing. I think that possibly that it might be for everybody. This is just my opinion, guys. I think that because of the way history has gone, that possibly, especially for Black Christians, when stuff is going wrong, it's easier to really be about your spiritual disciplines, really lean into God's presence.
Right.
Whereas I see a lot of people who are not Black people, maybe it's easier to lose your faith in those same situations. Bad stuff happens, I lose my faith. Typically, I see with Black Christians, bad stuff happens, we're leaning in. You know what I mean? But then I also see when good, like what you're talking about, which that's the insidious thing, is like, and that's biblical too. Like, the Bible, will say like your bellies are full, like, and that's when you turn away from God. You start attributing everything good going in your life to your own prowess, wisdom, industry. My the guy who stores up all his silos, and I'm just going to eat, drink, and be merry, and take it easy. Like, and his life is required of him that night. Like, so yeah, I think that, when you were talking earlier and you were saying that, when we're talking about empty without you, and you were saying that, even in the pain, like being with Jesus, that's where like the joy comes in. But again, it's, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, and that's the thing, is like, not only do I not want a blessing without God, but if it's, you can be on the mountaintop without God, or you can be in the valley of the shadow of death, but God's going to be with you. Which one are you going to choose? I'm choosing where God is. You know what I mean? So as far as how do I keep myself out of that range of everything's going good, so I'm not thinking about God, I think it's just, it's gratitude, and gratitude in this way. Two different ways. One is just like all the good things that are going on, giving honor and glory and praise to God for those things, because that I didn't do that. And like, if you really think about it, like, that that's true. You didn't create this. You didn't. That's why even outside of Christian thought, people come up with language that suggests I didn't physically make this happen, which is where you get manifestation language. There still even outside of Christian thought, there's this mystery. So it's like, I spoke it into the universe gave it back. Because you know what? You know why you're saying that? Because you know in your heart of hearts that you didn't actually make this happen. Like the way that I just like picked up this book, you know, you didn't do that. You know, there had to be something outside of you, transcendent, that caused this to happen.
That's right.
So when I say entering into gratitude, like acknowledging that non-human mystical force is actually God, Yahweh, you know,
that's good.
That took care of you and provided those things for you. So that's like one way of gratitude, but also the gratitude of not forgetting where you came from.
That's good.
Not forgetting the sexual addiction, not forgetting the porn addiction, not forgetting like almost losing your marriage, not forgetting, you know, feeling completely alone, you know, and how God answered every single prayer. Man, how you're living in the prayers of your past. When you're grateful in both of those ways, giving honor for the good things that have just happened, but also remembering where you were and who you were, then that keeps you humble.
Yeah, that's good.
And not wanting to go back to that, not wanting to go back to Egypt, not saying, yo, we're so displeased with Moses. Like, we had pots of meat in Egypt. You're romanticizing slavery. You know what I mean?
That's a word.
Yeah. So I think that's
good.
Yeah.
No, that's what's up. I think gratitude is so powerful, and it changes everything. Nothing in your surrounding or nothing in your life can change, but that gratitude will give you a perspective change, and it'll get you through that season for sure.
My pastor, like, this is kind of a little shocking little like soundbite, but this is so helpful when I was like still, and I mean, just I also want to say this, actually, this is a little rabbit hole, but I think there's a lot of conversation of like, you know, sexual addiction, porn addiction, all these things. Like, this is something that you will struggle with your whole life if you are in it. And I understand that terminology and in a way that is true, but I also want people to hear that like you absolutely can be completely 100% clean from pornography, from sexual addiction. Like, I am a testimony to that. Like, and I don't mean like for 2 months. I mean like for 10 years. Like, you can absolutely do that. Don't let anybody tell you like, yeah, porn is just a thing that's going to happen like intermittently, like forever. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, we believe in a God of miracles.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
If we believe in the resurrection, then we have to believe the God who resurrected from the dead, who walked on water, and who is resurrecting us can definitely get rid of your porn addiction.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's right. Absolutely.
You know? But the little shocking tidbit that I was going to say was with gratitude was my pastor, when he was like walking with me through breaking those addictions, he was like, gratitude is, it's hard to be fully grateful and then still commit a sin. So he was like, when you're tempted to look at porn, like, start praising God. And he was like, if you can actually like verbally praise God, sing a song of praise to God, and look, there's no way you're going to be able to look at porn in the next minute. You know what I mean? He was like, make a rule in your head that like, okay, you can look at it if you can actually worship God while you're doing it. he's like, you'll never do it.
You can't.
You know what I mean? Real. So like, but yeah.
That's good. That reminds me, like, you know, in the Old Testament, over 120, 40 times, God says, remember. And I think like it's spiritual amnesia that leads us to unbelief. Wow. So it's like, as you remember his goodness, as you remember his faithfulness, as you remember all the ways he's come, it's like, how am I going to fall into this? Like, God is good. God is. Yeah. And so, no, that's
spiritual amnesia. That's true, bro. That's the Israelites in the wilderness.
Oh, bro. Yeah, that's me.
Facts.
Yeah. No, I feel that. No, that's good. That's good. Man, I feel like we could like sit here for another hour and just easily. I feel like we just scratched the surface. But as we're kind of like coming to an end, I kind of want to pick your brain about like, what's this season look like for you? What is God teaching you? And what's on the horizon, whether it's professionally, personally, like what is it that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. I think that something that's been on my heart lately for me is getting back to the basics of like serving the needy and the vulnerable with my actual body, like in a physical way. That's just a very personal thing that I feel like God has put on my heart, because it's easy to be like, you know, I serve God and serve people through music, through art, through stuff like this, like in a very cerebral way, like either creatively with my mind or with speaking. And those are beautiful things and they're needed. But I don't want to neglect like just straight up, you know, the pure religion of taking care of widows and orphans and the poor. I mean, Jesus was so focused on that. You know, like he spoke about it so much, and he revealed the true hearts of so many of the religious by keying in on what are you doing for the poor and the widows and orphans, because you got all these robes on, you know, all these prayers, you know, all the Torah, and you're like, you got all this stuff, man, but what are you doing for the widows and the orphans and the poor? And so I don't want to be in that situation where people are, you know, giving me this is metaphor, but giving me the best places in the synagogue, and I've got these robes with all these tassels on and everything, and I'm neglecting the least of these, you know. So I'm wanting to, I'm wanting to like partner. Like, this is good because it's on a podcast, so holla at me. But I'm trying to like partner with like prison ministries and anything, bro. I'm open, like soup kitchens, whatever it is. Like I just, it's time to like really like get some teeth to this, you know.
That's good.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's like,
I could tell you were in James today.
You
were in that book.
I literally was in James like right before this. But
it kind of reminds me, you know, Matthew 25. Well, like backing up a little bit, Matthew 24, you know, the disciples are asking Jesus about end times. Just like, you know, when will we know? When are you coming back? And Jesus spends all of chapter 25 answering that questions, and he answers that question by giving 3 different parables. And the first one is like the parable of like the 10 virgins. Essentially, he's like, you won't know when I'm coming back. He's like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Right? I'm coming like a thief in the night. And, you know, I always say, like, when do you ever make an appointment with a thief? Like, I'll be ready Thursday at 7, you know. You don't. It just happens, you know. So he says that, so like he's just like, be on guard, like I can come at any moment. But then secondly, he gives the parable of the talents, and he tells them to like use your gifts that he's entrusted us with, right? And I love that word he uses. He doesn't say I've given you talents, he's like, I've entrusted you with these talents. So that could be creativity, music, bar, whatever it is. Like, use that, steward that, because they come back. The one with 5 brings 5 more. But then lastly, the last parable was the parable of the sheep and goats. And he's just like, take care of the least of these. So, you know, visit those that are in prison, you know, clothe those who are naked, feed those who are hungry. And if you do this for them, you've done it unto me. And I've always kind of lived by those. Like, those 3 are always on my mind as I'm thinking about, like, what does it look like to anticipate the second coming, or what does it look like to prepare for me to meet Jesus? It's like, well, I got to always be ready, on guard to, like, what does he put in my hands that I can be faithful over, that I have to steward, that I have to multiply. And then am I looking for opportunities to serve those who can't serve me? You know,
who can't serve me. That's the, bro, that's tough.
That's
tough, because even in Christian community, like it's really easy to like be a good Christian to people who are going to be good Christians to you back, and it could feel like you're fulfilling that thing because you're generous to the people in your church community who are also generous to you. And it's like it's like I'm being generous, I'm doing all these things, and it is true, and it definitely glorifies God to take care of the body. But man, Jesus doesn't give us that out. He's like, do it to people who will not benefit you. You're not going to get anything back from it. Like that's when you really show what you believe, you know. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's it, bro. It's like, that's the conviction. Am I doing this for people who literally will never pay me back in any way, you know?
Yeah. I think we're like in our cultural context addicted to reciprocity.
Yeah.
It's like I scratch your back, you scratch my back. I do this favor for you, I know you're going to return that favor.
That's right.
But like, what is it? Yeah, I think like Jesus doesn't serve us because we got him back.
Whoa.
You know, like
at all, bro.
There's nothing that you and I could ever do that would make God feel like we're even now. You know? And that's,
we try that sometimes too.
We do. We try to put God in our debt. Yeah. No, that's real.
No,
I feel good. No, that's good. So I'll be praying for that. I appreciate that. That's, you know, for you sharing that, and that's the season that you're in. Professionally, music. Is there going to be? I know you just put out a project. You're on tour right now.
Yeah,
I'm excited for.
Yeah, on tour with Hovey right now. This tour has been incredible.
Yeah.
Powerful tour, man. It's been amazing to see the effects on the people from this tour. It's been a joy being on it.
Yeah.
I will let's give some exclusives. I'll go ahead and say
exclusive.
You know what I'm saying? This is all I say. It's an Indie Tribe year.
Okay.
It's an Indie Tribe year.
Okay.
Full out. So prepare yourselves.
He said buy tickets to the festival before it sells out. Today.
Hey man, it's an Indie Tribe year. It's gonna be the biggest year in Indie Tribe history. Let me say it like that.
Okay.
So tap into that.
Yeah. We're ready. Yeah.
So and then the 5th year of the of Holy Smoke Festival is this August 14th through 16th. So we're very excited about that. That's another mark of God's faithfulness and answer prayers and so yeah,
that's what's up.
We're ecstatic.
Yeah, Parker and I have talked about coming out, and we just haven't had the time. We
come through, bro.
It sounds like this has got to be the year.
Man, come through, man.
For sure.
Come through.
For sure. No, we will. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to all that you guys are about to do, put out, all that good stuff. Just want to say thank you again for coming on the podcast, sharing from your heart, sharing what God has done in you personally, and sharing with us like what God's doing with you professionally. We're a fan at Shaping the Culture. We appreciate you. Like I said at the beginning, we've been wanting to do this for years.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we got to do this.
I'm glad we made it happen, and I'm thoroughly blessed, and I'm encouraged, and I know I'm walking away from this conversation full. I know that people tuning in are going to be blessed. And so the Bible says we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
Yes.
And today you share some testimonies that will stir the hearts of many. And so thank you so much, bro.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure. Been a pleasure.
Yeah. Until next time, family, peace and grace. Shaping the Code.